It should work. Great. Well, thanks everyone for joining. I'm Araminta. I run a content marketing agency called Mint Studios, and along with Annie, we manage the Fintech marketing Slack group. And today I am chatting with Yvette from Fintel Connect. Hi, Yvette. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here.
It's great to have you. And I'm excited about today's topic, partnership marketing. As I was telling Yvette earlier, I'm still a bit of a beginner on this topic, so I'm quite interested in understanding how it works and how fintechs can make the most of it. How this event will go, the first 30 minutes, Yvette and I will chat about partnership marketing and also what you do at Fintel Connect. And then afterwards, we'll be doing a Q&A. So feel free to add your questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll come to them afterwards. And then this is all recorded, so you will all receive the recording afterwards. So before we get started and we start talking about partnership marketing, Yvette, could you give us a bit of a background of who you are and what does Fintel do?
Cool. So I'm the COO at Fintel Connect. We actually identify as a fintech ourselves. So Fintel Connect, we are a technology provider that supports financial partners, banks, fintechs, credit unions on their customer acquisition journey. So we do that from providing transparency through to filling the funnel as well. At the core of what we do and what we're probably best known for at this stage is our affiliate network and technology. And then sort of our USP and where we're a little bit different from other affiliate networks and technologies that you might have heard of in the past is that we're purely focused on financial services. So this is our sweet spot.
And just to be a bit more specific about affiliate network, what do you mean exactly? Like, who are you connecting? If you can give us an example of who to who are you connecting?
Yeah, for sure. So we have two key stakeholders in our business. On one hand, we've got the brands. So like I mentioned, brands are sort of anyone that's in the financial space. So banks, fintechs, credit unions. And then on the other hand, we have what we call our network of publishers. A publisher really could be anyone that has traffic. So we're talking bloggers, we're talking news sites, influencers, podcasters, whoever it might be. And what our technology does is we like to think of ourselves as a bit of a matchmaker. So we sort of sit in the middle and we facilitate the tracking side of things and payments and all of that side of things. And we can go into it a little bit more later on. But we facilitate the relationship and sort of match publishers and brands together.
Sweet. So if I'm a fintech company and I want to be featured in a specific, I don't know, imagine I'm a fintech company that focuses on tax and I want to be really featured in a tax publisher, online publisher, you would be the right person to help me kind of figure out if that's even possible and then maybe to help set up that connection. Is that right?
For sure. And probably the way that we would look at it as well is, I mean, people do come to us because they want to work with an individual publisher or brand, and we have that relationship already. But we'd usually take it one step back and sort of say, when we're first starting to talk to a fintech, would say, what are your goals? Like, what is it that you're looking to achieve? And to be honest, most of the time it's new customer acquisition. Sure. It's probably the $1 million question that we always get asked. And so, yes, we can connect you with that one publisher that focuses on tax and is probably a really, really good fit for your brand, but we also look wider, like who else is a good fit to help you get that customer acquisition goal. So we take it one step back and really focus on the goals that you're looking to achieve from a digital marketing perspective.
Yeah. And do you only do B2B or is that also a B2C? Like, is there a specific industry that you, or vertical that you focus on?
We usually work, we work with, we almost think of us as like a B2B B2C. So we usually work with, at our core, we work with fintech brands that are usually B2C. So they're looking for consumers and that's what sort of they're talking about from a new customer acquisition. We do work with B2B brands as well. It's just B2B gets a little bit more niche when you're talking digital marketing and online marketing, but we do work with both sides of them.
Awesome. Nice. Well, let's talk about partnership marketing then, and let's get into it. At its core, like, let's just define partnership marketing a little bit, which is what we're going to talk about today, which is connecting brands with publishers. Is that how you would define it? Or is there some other stuff in there that you would want to?
Yeah, and the way that I would look at, I mean, and we're specifically affiliate marketing and partnership marketing, but yes, I think partnership marketing is looking at sort of connecting brands and publishers together. When you sort of dive into the intricacies of it, it then becomes down to really what you're paying on and what the terms of the agreement are. And that's when it becomes a little bit different if you're talking partnership marketing, affiliate marketing, or influencer marketing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. When we're going to dive into the specifics of each one in a few minutes, but yeah. So if we're a brand looking to start working with publishers, what would you say are because you mentioned before that it's all about the goals. What are the right goals to have, or what kind of goals should you have if you're going to get started with partnership marketing?
There's not necessarily right goals to have, because it can serve different, like partnership marketing. If you're looking sort of at a marketing funnel, it can serve at the awareness, consideration, and the intent phase, and sort of also on the engagement. So at the very bottom, sort of the reverse funnel as well. So I mean, there's no incorrect goal to have if it sort of fits within that sort of general marketing space. But being very clear on what you want to achieve is important. So, I mean, we've worked with partners in the past that come to us and say, okay, I'm new. I'm a new fintech, and all I'm interested in at the moment is brand awareness. That is my key objective at the moment. And so we're like, cool, we can support you with brand awareness. We're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they come back and they go, why aren't I getting any leads or new customers? And it's like, well, no, we're focusing on the brand awareness side of things. So making sure that you actually can't have a wrong goal, I would say.
Okay.
When you're looking at sort of getting into partnership marketing, but you just have to be clear on what that goal is and what the metrics you're going to measure that goal by.
Mm-hmm. You said something interesting, which is that if you're a new startup, then maybe you're more likely to be doing brand awareness. So that leads on to my next question, which is when do you really start looking for partners? And yeah, I mean, even if it's brand awareness, when would you start thinking about these kind of things?
Yeah, so the interesting thing with partnership marketing, and this is where it is very different from other digital marketing channels, is that at its core, it's relationship based. Yeah. So it's, you're not sort of just plugging something into your PPC campaign, pressing go and just seeing what happens and testing and learning. You're really working with another partner on the other end of it. And so knowing that it's relationship based, there's probably, to start with partnership marketing, I would suggest, I mean, usually brands come to us, and the most obvious trigger when brands come to us is because they want to scale and they want new customer acquisition. That will always be the sort of the driver if we're looking at partnership marketing. But when working with us specifically, and remember, affiliate marketing is a little bit lower down the funnel. So we're definitely more that consideration and that intent phase. We sort of suggest that there's two things brands have worked out before they get into that lower funnel partnership marketing. So the first thing they've really should work out is an optimized digital user flow that is as frictionless as possible. This is key because it's the number one thing you require to enter into the sort of affiliate space, really, or anything that's paying on a performance model, right? So partnerships want to get paid for their efforts. So you just want to make sure you don't have a leaky funnel. That's a leaky user flow. That's as sort of clear as that one gets. So making sure you have that optimized digital user flow and you're really clear on what that digital product is.
Wait, 1 second, just for clarity, the optimized digital funnel, that just means kind of like going from, it's your typical funnel, but it's digital. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. It's very hard if you're in an affiliate model to be able to track offline, for example. So you want to make sure that you're keeping and most fintechs will have a digital user user flow, and you just want to make sure that that is as optimized and robust as possible. And even better if you've stress tested it a little bit already. When we first start working with brands, we suggest that partnership marketing is not the first thing they do.
Yeah.
It is better to sort of have a bit of a play with social media. So we're looking at Facebook campaigns, Instagram campaigns, PPC, whatever that might be, to have sort of just have an understanding of how your user funnel works, and to start to get some data and learnings that you can potentially apply to the partnership space. And again, the reason for that is because it's relationship based. So you don't necessarily want to dive into partnership marketing if you're not sure on how your digital user flow works, and maybe you're still working out what your product is a little bit. Like,
yeah.
What's your product USP? Like, what messages are working well with what audiences? Like, if you're at that very early stage, you want to have stress tested a little bit before you get into publisher marketing.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And that's also what we tell our clients, is that if you're still, the keyword is testing. If you're still testing your audiences and still testing your product, then, putting thousands into content marketing is maybe not the best thing to do right now. You still need to test things. And it's probably the same with partnership marketing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you wouldn't use or partnership marketing to test a product market fit or to test messaging, right?
Probably you'd want to be down a little bit. You'd want to be a little bit down the track. So you don't have to have everything sorted out to get into publisher marketing. Okay. That way we probably wouldn't have any brands sure. working with us. And the affiliate channel can be a great way to sort of test messaging and to test which messaging works with different audiences, because affiliate marketing, you're thinking of it as one channel, but you're working with lots of different subsects within that channel, right? Like, one publisher might have a vastly different audience and focus to the next publisher that you're working with. And so it is a good place to sort of definitely test messaging and things like that. You just probably want to have a starting point, and a starting point that's been stress tested slightly. But you can still learn and try new things in the affiliate channel for sure. Part of what we say to a lot of our brands is keeping a bit of an open mind, just because you're getting into the channel, what you think might work in the first instance might not be what actually works. So you've got to sort of be a little bit flexible on that side of things as well.
What do you mean by stress testing?
Stress, and it really just comes back to stress testing. It really probably, especially from an affiliate marketing perspective, which is where my background is, of course, it comes back to that user flow. So just making sure. So the reason I keep going on about the user flow as well is one interesting thing to know about publishers. And these are the types of publishers that you will want to work with. They're protective of their own audience. Like, think of them as a business themselves. So they're working out what their audience is interested in, and they're sort of, they're trying to work out how to monetize their audience and a whole lot of different things on their side as well. And they want to give their audience, and this is where their credibility comes from, the best experience possible. So when they're choosing to work with brands, know that you're getting rated in some sense. They're sort of checking how legitimate you are, how likely their customers are actually going to get your product, if you're a fit for their audience. So they're rating you against a whole heap of different things. And they're really just trying to protect their audience to keep their sort of really good relationship and their credibility as well. So it's publishers are going to ask these questions of you when you start talking to them, and you want to have some data and information to kind of let them see that this is a good opportunity for them as well.
Nice. So that kind of leads on to my next question, which is, what should you look for in a publisher? So obviously they're going to ask questions to you. They want to make sure it's a good fit, but how do you know that a publisher is a good fit, and what do you want to be looking for?
Yeah, I think probably the most obvious one, and it's not rocket science, is alignment. is
Yeah.
probably the first thing you should look for. Like if you're a fintech with a credit card and you do report to credit bureaus, it is probably not useful for you to work with a 14-year-old TikToker whose audience is also 14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be your target audience. They can't get your product and there's no use in that. So really you're looking for alignment. Alignment doesn't have to be obvious. Like, you know, just because you're, like the example you gave before, right? Just because you're tax fintech doesn't mean that the only publishers you can work with are tax publishers. I mean, tax, I don't know what everyone's dialing in from all over the world, but everyone has to do tax, right? It's going to touch everyone at some point. So it's a much broader topic than just the specialists in the area. So you can look a little bit broader than obvious alignments, but it has to make sense. You probably still don't want to talk to a 14-year-old TikToker because they're not doing tax. So it just has to have some link to what you're talking to. The next thing most people would dive into, and we do this because it's the easiest way to sort of, I guess, identify one publisher from the next publisher from the next publisher. And being a digital marketing channel, you dive into metrics next. It's probably the next sort of natural way that you'd go for looking for a partner. So you're probably looking at if they're an influencer, how many followers do they have? If they're a blogger, how many monthly visits do they have to their site? I always will say at this point, don't forget to look at engagement. Just their audience size is not the be all and end all. I have to tell brands that quite a bit, actually. We have some really, really big publishers that drive millions of views monthly, and we have other publishers that drive 40,000 views monthly, and they might actually have higher quality audience members and drive better results for our clients than the really big guys. So you don't want to discount based on metrics, but it's good to understand what they are. If you can get your hand on audience demographics, that becomes a really cool matching process in terms of what's the audience that you think is the right fit for your brand, because you might still be testing it out a little bit. And if it aligns to what their audience demographics are, that's a really good one for understanding opportunity and alignment.
Yeah, so you mentioned engagement. It's difficult to measure engagement. So how, like, I can just imagine going through publishers, unless they report on it, it's difficult to tell, right?
Yeah.
So how, like, I know Google Analytics 4 now does engagement, but apart from that, like, how do you measure engagement on a Instagram? Is that a comment? Is that like, how would you, what kind of engagement metrics are you looking for?
It could be. It definitely depends on the partner. Like engagement on sort of social medias would be sort of like comments, views, things like that. Sometimes it's asking the publisher. Like if, you know, it's unlikely the first group of publishers you are going to go out to are going to be new to the space. It's likely that they're already going to have several brand partnerships in play. Just because they're the easiest publishers to find. So it's likely that they're going to be already in the brand partnership space. So asking them what's worked for them in the past, like just getting really, really curious, being like, okay, can you chat me through sort of how one of your previous campaigns has worked? Have you ever worked on a campaign before that's X metric so getting back to what your metric is and what you're going to measure success on? Just say you are really interested in conversions or new customers. Ask them, be like, have you done a brand partnerships that's focused on new customer acquisition before? And if they say yes, then you can get some really cool engagement questions in there, being like, okay, so what, how many people engaged with that post on your side? How many people clicked through? Out of that click-through rate, how many people converted? Like you can actually then start to get really granular, but it probably starts with just understanding top level what they've already done in this space.
Yeah. I think the key here is knowing the click-through and then quality of conversions, because we've done partnership marketing in the past and the publisher was only able to report on traffic and click-through rates, but it didn't really tell us much about the quality of those click-through, like the actual conversion. So I think that's probably the most interesting if you're working with the publishers, like, did it bring quality conversions, which is difficult, the most difficult thing to track, right?
Yeah.
So
and that's really part of what I mean, I know I mentioned at the beginning that sort of our mission is to really support fintechs on their sort of customer acquisition journey. A big part of that is filling the funnel, which is working with publishers and getting them to talk to your brands and things like that. But probably the biggest part of it is actually providing that transparency. So the way that we track everything we do, we track through to what that valuable conversion is. And occasionally post quality metrics as well. So a valuable conversion might be an approved credit card, for example.
Yep.
And that's what we pay out on, and that's sort of what we're tracking to when we provide that transparency. But then we might also want to understand post that conversion, how many times are they using the credit card? Do they pay it off on a regular basis? And all of that sort of quality metrics at the end as well.
Does it sometimes end up being like too much of a numbers game? Because at the end of the day, you know, if you've got those conversions and it's really clear that it's bringing in high quality conversions, it's just a matter of looking for the publisher that offers the highest quality of conversions and then just working with them. I'm guessing there's more to that, right? So apart from the conversions, what other, and the numbers, let's just say, what other things should you be looking for in a publisher?
I mean, really, it absolutely does become a numbers game. I don't think you're sort of necessarily wrong in that spot. And when you get the numbers and the data, you're probably looking at how you can replicate your success as well. So you've got one publisher that works well. How do you find others that are similar? But in terms of your actual question, in terms of what else makes a really good partner, it's probably a partner that's just, you know, you can get to a certain level pretty easily with a publisher. They're driving good quality numbers for you. The traffic, it's really high quality. You're happy with the customers coming through. But there's never a point in partnership management when you can just stop. Like, there's always something. It's just like any digital marketing channel. There's always an optimization. There's always a way that you can innovate and do something a little bit differently. So a really, really high quality publisher partner is one that's ready to kind of go on that journey with you and be like, we're getting great results, but I'm sure we could be doing better. Like, I don't think there's ever an end point where you're sort of like, it's not more customers or higher quality customers that we can't get. So someone that's looking to try different things, innovate and sort of optimize, and is really wants to actually view you as a partner, are probably the best type of publishers to look out for. Yeah. They're tough to find. They're the good ones.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can also imagine that you've got a lot of young, small fintech startups that come to you and they say, we want to be on TechCrunch, or we want to be on NerdWallet. We want to be on the top best publishers immediately. Of course, that's usually, I mean, unlikely. So how, you know, when you're a very new startup, what kind of publishers are more realistic and should you be looking to work with?
I'm laughing because it literally happens.
It happens to us too. So yeah.
All the time. Yeah. NerdWallet's the big one in the US market. Everyone wants to be on NerdWallet and Credit Karma. I think probably the first thing I do in those instances is really going back to it helps for them to see it from the publisher's point of view.
Yeah.
And I'll answer your question properly in a moment, but usually how I explain the publisher point of view to brands and fintechs is publishers are looking for three things when they're looking to work with a brand or a product. The first thing, they're looking at how interesting is your product. I know you may think your product is the best one out there and you don't have competitors and things like that. And if you don't have competitors, that's great. But like, how competitive is your product in the market? What's its USP? Is it strong? Like, if we're looking at credit cards, and you know, what's the interest rates? What are the perks? What are the benefits? How does it stack up against other credit cards in the space? Like, you know, and basically that piece there is just how clickable is your product? How likely is one of our audience members going to click on your product? Because that's the first step. The second step, and I sound like a bit of a broken record, how likely is your product going to convert? How good is your user flow? What are your conversion rates like? What are your drop-offs like? Really understanding that side of things. And then the third one is what's the payout at the back of it? So what's the commission? What's the bounty? Whatever it might be. Because affiliates really don't a money-making business. They want to make revenue just the same way that you do. So they're judging, and each affiliate will measure each of those 3 factors a little bit differently, but they're looking at those key 3 factors on whether or not they want to work with your brand. So understanding that from the publisher's point of view helps you have that conversation a little bit more with the big guys, and you may get a no. So if we do go to the Nerd Wallet and things like that, there are just so many fintechs out there at the moment. You are likely going to get a no. So then the first thing that we do is, okay, how do we build up data for you guys so that next time you go to Nerd Wallet, you can actually say, well, we're working with 10, 20, 50 partners at the moment. Our conversion rates are best in class. Our product's doing really well. Our consumers love us. And then you're providing a much more compelling argument to get on their side eventually. So back to your original question, which affiliates are sort of more realistic in that sort of first stage? You're looking for the affiliates that don't have necessarily those massive audiences or corporates, but they've got high value audiences. So you're really looking for those affiliates that are going to drive the quality that you're looking for and collectively probably drive the volume. So you're not going to get your volume from one partner, but you're going to get it spread out across the board, which is a much better model than relying on one partner anyway. So really looking at mid-sized publishers that have good quality content, good quality audience. Their metrics might not be as high as what your CEO or founder wants to see, but they're the ones that are going to be the best value to work with in the first instance.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Yeah. And how, I guess the question is, how do you find them? Because that's tricky. I mean, unless you work with, a company like Fintel, how do you go about finding those publishers that are niche, that have high quality audiences, all that stuff?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I was like, work with us. If you don't have the luxury of working with a network or an agency or something like that already has that existing network for you to tap into, it's, to be perfectly honest, it's a bit of a hard slog. Like it's a lot of research. There's no sort of easy way to do it or magic solution in terms of doing it. One secret sauce tip that we would have, and it's probably a really easy place to start, is if you do have competitors and you've got clearly defined competitors, typing that competitor into Google with the word like review, like, I'm trying to think of a fintech, like Coinbase review or whatever it might be, looking at all the publishers that are talking about your competitors and are sort of mentioning them in content, there's a way to see if they have an affiliate deal or things like that, but that's a pretty good place to start because they're already interested in brands that are similar to yours. You may run into the roadblock where they have an exclusive with that competitor. But that's a really natural place to start. Where are your competitors? Who are your competitors working with? You already know that those publishers are interested in that type of product. If you want a quick and easy win, that might be the best place to start.
And then in terms of like, imagine you do this and you find a few and you've got a list. Do you have any tips on like capturing their attention? Because this is often mostly going to be a cold email or a cold reaching out via LinkedIn, whatever it is. Like, what have you seen captures a publisher's attention when it comes to partnerships?
Yeah, and there's no perfect way of doing it or things like that. Funnily enough, my background is actually, and I know we'll probably talk about it in a little bit, but my background's actually in public relations, which feels very similar, like pitching to newspapers and media outlets is actually very similar to pitching to publishers. Yeah. But one of the things that we sort of do at Fintel, and it's probably not the best answer to your question, but understanding what their pain points are. It's a much easier conversation than sort of going in and telling them about how great you are and what you can offer and sort of, why you're the next big thing. Understanding what a publisher's pain points are will make it easier to have that conversation with them. So asking them sort of really curious questions like, are you open to new brand partnerships at the moment? What's working well for you in the past? Are there any sort of verticals that you're interested in getting more partnerships in? You're trying to sort of flip it in your favor in terms of the questions you're asking. But I feel like understanding what they're working on is really good. If you can make their job easy for them as well. These publishers, especially if you're not going after the corporate publishers, so we're leaving aside like the NerdWallets of the world for the beginning, these publishers might be, it might just be them. It may just be them working, working from their home office and sort of trying to get everything done. It might be a team of 2 or 3. So if you can find an easy way, like if you sort of look through their site and sort of see what some of their best performing articles are, say, hey, we feel like this is a really easy inclusion for you in one of your existing articles. Like you could potentially take this type of it, and then you're really getting into the pitching piece, right? Like we could see it as fitting in, slotting in easily here. Would love to work with you guys, et cetera, et cetera. So
yeah. Oh, there is a fine line, right, between, pitching and just, I think anyone who has a website knows these backlinks emails that are like, add my link, and then there's just nothing in return. And you're just like, why would I do that? So it's really tricky. I think pitching is very difficult. You mentioned pain points. It'd be interesting to hear kind of what are the pain points that you've seen publishers have, and it could be anything from, your bigger publishers, the niche ones, and also your everyday blogger. Like in the B2C space, I know companies like PensionBee who had a lot of success with working with personal finance bloggers who kind of talk about their money journeys and all that. And these are people who are just a one-person blogger, and they probably do not understand the intricacies of like brand partnership deal. They don't use all those words. So going from the small blogger to even the bigger publisher, what have you seen are the most common pain points?
Pretty much none of them have a heap of spare time. So that is one pain point. Most of even the big guys to the small guys, getting in their editorial calendars can be tricky. Other pain points is, finding
Annie, you're let me mute her. Sorry. Right, go on.
I'm trying to think of other pain points. There's a whole heap of them. Publishers are always looking for ways to probably diversify their revenue and sort of make sure that we might have one publisher that's worked out how to monetize one vertical. And usually they might be trying to potentially break into different verticals. So that could be a pain point where they're like, okay, I'm doing banking really well at the moment, but I'd love to get into tax or insurance or whatever it might be. Trying to find partners to sort of supplement what they're doing can always be a bit of a pain point. I'm trying to think what else. It can be very varied, and I can't necessarily think of anything else off the top of my head.
Yeah, it's difficult. It's just, I'm just basing it on my experience reaching out to doing this partnership, and obviously we were doing it cold. Also, like, have you found success in, because I'm guessing that you're also at Fintel looking always for publishers, right? Have you found success in going, instead of like going to the company's contact form kind of thing, instead trying to focus on that relationship thing and going to the the COO of that company or the partnerships person of that company? Obviously now we're talking about publishers, not bloggers, but have you found success in going through LinkedIn and actually trying to build a connection? Yeah,
absolutely. That's definitely one of the tactics we do. We still do a lot of sort of emailing and things like that, because it's sort of something we can't not do as part of our outreach. But especially for getting the more established companies, whether or not they're bigger, but just more established, I think sort of definitely reaching out to them via LinkedIn is really good. Depending on where you are in the world as well, there's always a lot of really good conferences that are affiliate focused. Like there's one in the States that's literally for financial publishers, which is fantastic. We go to that
FinCon.
every FinCon, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Someone in the group was just asking, is FinCon worth it? So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, FinCon, funnily enough, I mean, we're affiliate network and technology focused on financial services. So FinCon felt like it was made for us. Like it's a really good conference for us. I'll have to ping that person back in the Slack channel and let her know what our experience has been. But we do find it really worthwhile, and sort of, I think, you know, taking 2 years off from networking and in-person events, these conferences that we're going to lately have been really, really, really beneficial for building relationships and sort of having those conversations that aren't as so transactional. So you can have the bigger conversations, like, what are you looking to achieve this year? Like, what's your goals for the year ahead? Like, how can we actually support you? Because at the end of the day, that's what a partnership is, right? Like, you want to have that sort of support. But there are lots of really good in-person events and networking events and things like that make it a little bit easier. But LinkedIn is absolutely a great one.
Yeah, good one to start. I like what you said about conferences and maybe even virtual conferences, although I think I'm getting a bit tired of those. But yeah, in person, Annie and I are going to the banking transformation in London. So if anyone is going, let us know. Okay, talking about, now let's get into, like, you know, we've established a partnership. Hopefully we're in the middle of negotiations. What are some tips in terms of negotiating a partnership that you've found that works well for you?
I mean, negotiating a partnership is, I mean, it doesn't differ from probably negotiations in other verticals and other areas of your business. I think we find that sort of having a baseline for your program and what you're sort of, maybe I'll take a step back. It really comes back to, in affiliate marketing specifically, you're usually paying on a cost per event. Yeah. So, for example, a cost per app download or cost per approved customer or whatever it might be. Understanding how much you're willing to pay for that acquisition is really important. It might not be what's in your program at that time. You might pay $80 for a credit card application, but you might be willing to pay $120. And because you're building that into your costs, right? That's you building your acquisition costs into your actual sort of profit and loss and whatever that might look like. So understanding what you're willing to pay is probably going to be the best piece, and having a little bit of wiggle room is always going to be helpful. And then understanding why the publisher wants to, what the publisher's standpoint is. So if you and usually negotiations is always going to be around price, which is why I just went directly to CPAs and deals and things like that. So understanding, like, the publisher might be actually coming to you because they've got 5 other brands in the space that are paying $100 and you're offering $80, so it doesn't make commercial sense for them. So that starts to give you that industry context that'll help you sort of make sure that you're being competitive in the space as well. And if you can move it away from price and add value in other areas, that becomes really important as well. So if, what else can you offer? Like, can you offer bonuses based on quality? Because again, that sort of supports a more profitable customer for you potentially, or whatever it might be. So I don't have any sort of silver bullet tips when it comes to negotiation, but I think understanding what your cost per acquisition is and being really clear on what you're willing to pay, how it backs into your cost per acquisition, and being open to be flexible on models is probably the best way to put it. Yeah,
I like that. So have kind of an allowable CAC, right? Acquisition cost, and being flexible. I think those are great tips. And I like what you're saying about having additional things to offer. It could be, I don't know, maybe like, attending a conference, like maybe you host a conference, or maybe you're hosting something and giving them premium access. So it could be like an entire package, right? That you're offering them. Yeah.
Do you know one thing that affiliates really, really love, and not all brands can do this, but fintechs are usually a little bit more agile and flexible in this space, is if they can offer their customers something exclusive. So for example, just say your bank account or whatever it might be. If you can actually just say you go with NerdWallet or whoever it might be, and just say all NerdWallet customers get $10 into their bank account each time. All NerdWallet customers get $10 into their bank account, and it's only offered to NerdWallet customers. Affiliates really love that, because coming back to that original point about wanting to add value to their audience, ensure their audience has a good customer experience, being able to offer something exclusive. And sometimes fintechs might not necessarily be able to move on the hard acquisition costs, but when it comes to their customers, there might be something that they can play with, like no fees for the first 3 months, or what it could be anything.
Yep.
But that's something really cool that you can do as well, that could be a little bit different.
That's cool. Yeah, that's great. I know we touched on this previously, but it'd be interesting, as a platform, as a network, what you say about this. I did ask before, like going directly to build a partnership and then working with the platform. What would you say are the benefits of working with a platform, apart from the obvious that you're helping them find publishers? And would you be willing to share what kind of budget should a fintech startup or company be willing to put, really, in order to start working with a platform?
Great. So working with a platform, I would say the biggest benefit is the scale. So it's the scale in terms of what you mentioned, that we've already got the relationships with the publishers and we're willing to make those introductions and things like that. But there's a lot of admin that goes into a publisher relationship as well. You've got contracts, you've got monthly payments, you've got a lot of back and forth just to sort of, it takes a lot of time to get the first piece of content up and running, and then to look at optimizations and things like that. So really what a platform or a network offers is taking away a lot of that admin so that you can work with more partners. So it's giving you, like, anyone could do 1 or 2 or 3 direct publisher deals. But then you have to talk to your finance team about paying them every month and sort of getting them set up on that. This is all done through and automatically done through networks and things like that. So that's really just enabling scale. And when you're working with a brand like ourselves, you get that expertise level as well. We work with a lot of fintechs, and we can give you a lot of industry data and sort of background in terms of what would help you on that acquisition journey. In terms of budget, it's not the easiest one to answer, because the budgets work a little bit different in the affiliate space anyway. Usually where we start with our brands that we work with is be like, what is your monthly acquisition targets? So if you want 100 approved accounts and you're paying $100 per account, winding in fees and whatever it might look like, that's your budget. Or we work backwards. Like if you have $5,000 available for a monthly budget, we would say, okay, that roughly is going to back into 50 approvals a month, depending on what your CPA is and everything like that. So it's sort of basically budgets will just kind of limit or open up to how many publishers you work with. So if your budget's small, you probably can't work with a NerdWallet or a Credit Karma or those guys, because they can send a huge amount of volume. So you want to make sure you have enough budget to cover the publishers that you're working with in the first instance. But you can work with budgets of, like, we work with budgets of sort of like $5,000 a month up to $300,000, $400,000 a month. So it really just depends on a whole heap of factors, but just understanding what your budget is or what your goal acquisition is for the month. And backing that into your CPA and fees and things like that.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's very important to have your numbers right. I mean, I'm sure you've also met fintech companies that don't know how much it costs yet, or don't know the value, and depends on your business model. Of course, sometimes that's not possible. But it really helps to have those numbers nailed down before you start, investing in partnership marketing. And to be honest, with content also, like that's what we say, helps to have your numbers.
Yeah,
right.
For sure.
So let's talk a little bit about affiliate marketing versus influencer marketing versus publishers. Do you have experience with all these three? Like, I know you said affiliate marketing and definitely publishers. Is influencer marketing like a big part of what you do as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, we do this sort of with, not on purpose. We almost use those three words interchangeably. So we would call an affiliate a publisher, and a publisher an influencer. And really, like, we sort of view them as the same thing. We view all three of those groups as anyone that has traffic that a brand might be interested in. Generally speaking, when people use the word affiliate versus the word influencer, it probably implies what the payment model is for working with that brand. So affiliate generally means that it's a pay per significant event. So it's not an upfront payment. It's sort of like every time you send a customer that converts for a credit card, they might get $100 kickback. And it's like, so in the fintech space, that could be an app download, it could be a funded debit card, it could be, you know, a completed application, whatever it might be. Influencers traditionally imply that it's like a flat fee model. So an upfront cost, so $2,000 for an Instagram post or a sponsored post or whatever it might be. We work with all three. And we work with all three on that same model. So that cost per meaningful event, whatever we decide that might be in the onboarding process. But we are starting to play a little bit more with hybrid models as well. Because just the influencer channel is pretty massive in the fintech space at the moment. I mean, I was not talking about TikTok influencers a year ago, and now all of the brands that we're talking to, they're like, how many TikTokers do you work with, and can we get some content through that channel and things like that. And probably to work with sort of maybe the TikTokers, the Instagrammers, and to a degree YouTubers as well, you may need to pay an upfront cost plus the CPA commission. So, I mean, we work with all three. We also work with news sites, and a whole sort of a very varied range. But at the end of the day, we just see them as, you know, platforms that have traffic that our brands and fintechs are interested in.
Yeah, influencer marketing is a big topic for sure. I guess I know the answer is it depends, but kind of like at what moment would you say? Because, you know, I'm a bit wary of people just jumping on the influencer marketing bandwagon because it's cool and that's what everyone else is doing. So what would you say are some key signs that influencer marketing is like a good channel for you, fintech company?
Yeah, it really does depend. I mean, it comes back to how you would look at any sort of publisher that you want to work with, right? Like, is their audience a good fit? Is the product that you have relevant to their audience? Is there a really clear link? And I think probably in the influencer channel, and the reason so many people are drawn to it at the moment is that authenticity. So are you going to be able to offer something that is authentic? One thing we haven't spoken about today, and I don't want to open a can of worms in the last 10 minutes, but compliance is a massive thing when it comes to this channel, influencers, affiliates. It doesn't really matter. And is your compliance team happy with influencers talking authentically about your brand? And what can they say and what can't they say? So it's you've kind of got to work out what your risk tolerance is internally, and then look to see, that's probably the only difference with influencers. What's your risk tolerance? And then what's your sort of ability to work with them on that very authentic? Because we can, as consumers now, we can pick a bad sponsored post a mile away on Instagram or TikTok. It's just, it looks awkward, it feels awkward, it's probably not doing your brand any use. So if you're going into the channel, you want to be able to give a lot of that editorial control to the influencer you're working with.
So it's all about risk tolerance, really. And I guess with fintech and finance, that is always a little bit of muddy waters. I really wanted to get to this topic. I know we haven't done questions yet, but this was a really important one. So thanks for going through that. So yes, let's get to questions. I have one here from Lionel. And Annie has a question. Annie, would you mind unmuting and asking your question directly? I know you're on the road, but if possible, if not, don't worry. I don't know if Annie has heard me. No, maybe she told me she's doing viewings, so I think she might not be able to. Okay, that's fine. It's fine. I will ask the question. So she asks, for direct pitching on social and email, what messages usually work? How can you really grab influencers' attention? And is it all pay to play?
I mean, some of the easiest way to grab their attention is the pay to play side of things. And yes, and I think we would be naive to think that it's not a pay to play space. It absolutely is. So you do have to have that behind you in terms of reach, because they get reached out to a bunch of brands and fintechs sort of on a daily basis. In terms of messages that usually work, again, it probably just comes back to what value, like trying not to think of the value you're getting from working with them. What's the value that they're getting from working with you? So what can you offer? You really want to flip that for them. So what are you offering? So, you know, what can they get with working with you? And it could really come down to, and maybe it does come down to your product. Like maybe it is something that truly sort of supports consumers on this very niche part of everyday life, like a tax service or whatever it might be. But yeah, flipping it so you can really communicate value to the end person is probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
How do you make their lives easier?
Yeah, I've also heard that like influencer marketing a year ago, 2 years ago, it was very successful, and now it's kind of decreasing the value just because consumers are bombarded now, right, with influencer marketing and promos, so they don't take them as seriously. Have you also seen like a decrease in effectiveness of this channel?
I mean, maybe, I think that it depends who you're working with. So maybe slightly. I think probably what's also happened is there's a lot more influencers. Maybe like we don't have individual influencers that are probably providing the same number of conversions that we're looking at on a monthly basis, but because there's so many more of them, you've got more opportunities to kind of increase your numbers across a wide variety of them. In terms of value, I think it really depends on how the influencer positions themselves. If they're trying to play it off like it's, you know, it's not a partnership and it's just, oh, I just want to talk to you about this card that I use in my everyday life. Or if they approach it like, I'm trying to educate you and help you. And yes, I am getting paid by this brand, but I genuinely believe in this product and I want to help. You know, there's ways of positioning it. So, and it depends on the users and the audiences. Like some people we have a publisher in the Canadian market, and he just knows everything there is to know about credit cards. Like genuinely, if I needed a credit card, I would go chat to him and have a conversation with him and be like, what credit card should I need? Like his audience go to him because they know he probably has a commercial relationship with all these brands that they're working with, but they fully trust what he has to say. And he's built that up over time, right? Like that's a really long-standing relationship he has with his audience. So there's plenty of credible influencers out there as well. It just depends on how they're positioning themselves.
Yeah, and you have to be good at finding them. And Lionel had a question we kind of touched on previously, but digging a bit deeper, is how do you ensure that influencers stay within the laws and regulations, right? What we were asking before, when it comes to promoting financial products, especially via influencers?
Yeah. The one thing I say to brands is I actually put the onus back on brands to begin with. The problem with compliance laws, and regardless of what region you're in, they're not always black and white. Like most compliance laws have this little bit of gray area. And so the first step for a fintech or a brand is to really set, and you'll do this with your legal and compliance team, but set your interpretations and have them as black and white. So you've got to try and like translate it out of the gray, wavy area and things like that and have it as black and white. For each brand that we work with, we create what we call marketing guidelines. And we have a really clear, like, a do's and don'ts list.
Yeah.
Like, do this, don't do this. Like for fintechs, a lot of the time, just say you've got a checking or savings product, but you're not allowed to refer to yourself as a bank. Like you are only allowed to refer to yourself as a fintech or neobank or whatever it might be. Having that clearly written out and having just a really quick and easy do's and don'ts, and this is when you can say something, and this is what are the conditions for those do's and don'ts as well. That's really important. And if you set that expectation with publishers, and there's two ways that we do this with publishers. We give them the marketing guidelines and we say you have to adhere to these marketing guidelines. And then we have expectations for when they don't do the right thing. So, you know, we have sort of systems of like, if you sort of go against our compliance guidelines, you have to change it within 24 hours, warnings and things like that as well. So it's harder in the influencer space. So for example, with a lot of our brands with bloggers and like written content, you can have it so that you see that content before it gets posted live. Obviously, when you're creating video and doing like live stories and things like that, it's a little bit harder. But as long as you've got those really clear guidelines, that's the best way to be able to manage it.
Yeah, and maybe sending those key guidelines to your partners, vendors, like your banking partner, right? Just to make sure that they're, because we often have this with content actually, where every piece of content we publish for a client will have to be sent first to like the banking partner to make sure that they go through compliance. It's like an extra step, but at least it ensures that everyone is compliant and it gets it. Yeah. Sweet. Well, wow. There was so much information there, Yvette. I think it was incredible. Thank you so much for going into so much detail. I think if you were a beginner in partnership marketing before this and you've watched this and listened to everything you said, you'll be a lot more comfortable in general with partnership marketing. So thanks a lot for that. If people want to find you and follow you online, where's the best place to find you?
Probably on LinkedIn. Easiest way to please connect with me there. Happy to have conversations with you guys as well. I also sort of post when I'm sort of doing talks and things like that on LinkedIn. So I would say LinkedIn is the best place to find me.
Nice.
And I'm obviously on the Slack channel as well. So if anyone wants to reach out directly to me, I'm always, I could talk about this for ages. So
it's fascinating. Yeah. Are there any, because I really don't find, like in fintech marketing in general, I don't find many resources about fintech and partnership marketing. So apart from Fintel Connect, are there any other resources that you'd recommend for people to learn more about influencer marketing and partnerships and managing publishers?
Not necessarily off the top of my head. There's certainly lots of resources about affiliate marketing, and so then being able to and you know, it's can be similar across verticals. Obviously, finance probably just has higher compliance needs and things like that. But there's a lot of affiliate marketing resources out there, a lot of affiliate marketing conferences. So nothing off the top of my head, but
just
nothing
look for
quick
affiliate.
Google.
Look for affiliate marketing and then dig a bit deeper from there.
Yeah, sure.
Great. Well, thanks a lot, Yvette. Thanks to everyone for coming live and for you for answering all my questions. Really appreciate it. And see everyone in the Slack group.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Have a good day.